Parental wounds are emotional experiences we had in our childhood that offered information about our worth and value. Now, when you think about self-esteem, self-esteem is how I think about myself. So because of the way we experience our first 10 years of life, we are going to form a subjective view of ourselves. And this is what shapes who we believe we are. When children feel emotionally disconnected from their caregivers, they may conclude that they are unworthy of love, acceptance, and affirmation. In other words, the sense of belonging is compromised. Mothers give a sense of being because mother is the one who is bringing that child, giving the child life and nurturing that life until the baby is ready to come out. While fathers give a sense of belonging. Now that I have already formed a connection with my mom, when I come out, my father needs to give me a sense of belonging. And this is why it is so important when you struggle with your identity, when you struggle with feeling good enough, you need to revisit your experience with your father. Your sense of acceptance and your sense of self is going to be impacted by the way you experienced the male caregiver in your life. Very important. All right. So what causes what we call childhood trauma? And childhood trauma doesn't have to be huge, a huge thing. It is anything that causes a child not to feel valued. And I will show you those needs of emotional needs of children for them to develop a healthy sense of self. So emotional neglect. Now, we all kind of can look back and say, emotional what? Where kulikuwa na mtu, was there somebody who actually experienced in our African culture that experienced emotional, connection with parents? So we can ask that question because in our culture, and I have come to realize it's not just our culture, it's all over the world because the research that has come out about emotional needs of children comes from the West. So that means they have done research in the West and they have found out that these are needs that children have. So emotional neglect, critical and verbally abusive parents. This is very important for us to look at because that causes a child to begin to go into ego space. What is ego space? Is where you are self-preserving, and therefore your emotional development doesn't necessarily happen healthily because you can't express what you are feeling. Children are to be seen, not to be heard. And this is something that I want us parents who are raising our children in the US. There is a blessing and there is a negative of it, but do not lose the blessing that now your children can verbalize how they feel. And this is where I usually tell people, please visit your childhood. Remember, wacha ku block. Remember, so that you can understand the children you are raising right now, and you realize that what you got and what you did not get, those things, they are very vital to the formation of the emotional self. Because when you are not okay, we normally use the word feel. So there is a fact over here, but we don't say I think, we say I feel. And especially if you are a deep thinker, you are constantly saying, yeah, there is a fact here, but I feel, you see, because we are emotional beings. And especially during our first years, our first 20-something years, 22, 23, we haven't fully formed our logical part of the brain. So we are experiencing life through emotions. It is how I feel. And so it's important to understand that. So dismissing emotions, how many of us, we have told our children or we were told, ulie ni kuonyeshe kitu itakufanya ulie zaidi. You see, we are not allowed because you see, if you pinch me as a child, I'm going to feel pain, and therefore the natural response to that is to cry. And then I'm told, if you cry, I will beat you even more. So you see, we are suppressing and so dismissing the emotions. Smile even if you are sad. Being parentified, becoming the emotionally relied upon by parents. I remember myself when I was 14. That's when I took my parental hat. I'm deputy parent because now the home was disrupted and I wanted to be my mother's support system. And so that is being parentified. And even today, so my siblings, they don't see me as a sibling. They see me as the deputy parent. There is only one of my sisters who calls me and says, hey, how are you? What is going on? I was just calling to say hi. The rest of them, they call me when they need something. So that is a sign that you are already parentified. And then being blamed or guilt tripped. A lot of times our parents would use an, hey, Gomotiga, you people, you are not giving me any peace. I will go and leave you. So you see that is a threat that causes us to feel guilty as children. And so we suppress ourselves so that we can feel safe, so that you don't leave us. In other words, we use the word pacifying. Then growing up with a parent who was mentally ill or there was substance abuse issues. So probably 90% of us here can attest to these two, because if you have a parent who has substance abuse issues, the other parent will be more depressed, anxious, and frustrated all the time, or living in fear, because then their partner, whoever that person is who drinks, what happens is that the moment it's coming to be 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, that other parent, they begin to, their anxiety and fear begins to rise because they are anticipating this person will come home and it will be chaos. Children also will develop that. Myself, I developed that because when they would be in the same space together, they would start to argue, and I would hear the word that the phrase I used to hear, and then I become now, oh my goodness, was, oh, sasa unataka kushindana, bas nasema bas leo hakuna kulala. But so you want to also understand, how did you experience that ecosystem at home? Was it safe or was it chaotic? Then receiving mixed messages. So parents who are reactive. So mom, when she is happy, she is so happy, she loves on you, she gives you everything you want. And then when she is mad, it's also chaotic. It is all the way. So you experience your parent in these two spaces with messages that are colliding. We call it dissonance. And then a child is going to feel they do not know what to trust. Are you safe or are you not? You see, there are people who have told me, I have asked my mother, I have asked my aunt, was I really there? Is this really my biological parent? You see, and then we have also children who are exposed to domestic violence, especially the physical one. They develop, or one of them will develop a really severe or persistent mental disorder because they carried the anxiety of the home, especially the child who would come and stand between the parents and beg them to stop fighting, or the child who would try to fight dad to protect mom. So they are watching domestic violence at home can create trauma. Now, what we call PTSD, post-trauma stress disorder, is the reliving of things that happened in the past, not necessarily reliving the experience only, but when you are in your adult relationship and there is skirmish with your partner, immediately you go into self-preservation. So either you are going to act out, project aggression, or you are going to hold in, and maybe sometimes you are going to pacify. Oh yeah, no, I didn't mean it. Please don't be angry, like that. You see, so you are not going to experience a relationship that is adding value. It keeps taking away value every time there is a conflict. These 4 needs are very important. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to change just a little bit. And I want a volunteer to read one, another one to read number 2, another one number 3, and another one number 4. Please engage me and tufanye haraka to waste time. So who's going to read for me the first one? Just unmute yourself and read it loudly.
To know that I am loved and accepted, to know that I am lovable and acceptable.
Wonderful. And that is in itself very, very self-explanatory. Not only do I need to know that I am loved and I am accepted, but also I need to know that when I offer love and when I offer acceptance, it is received. And that makes me feel safe in that relationship.
To know that I am competent, that I can succeed in anything that I put my mind to, healthily celebrated by my caregivers.
Yes. Now, competency is very important, that I can do anything. So the example of when my parent or my caregiver is going to make me question my competence is when I am told, unafikiriaga aje? What is wrong with you? Why can't you think right? You see, that causes a child to begin to think there must be something wrong with me. Now, the other extreme is the one we say, I'm going to say it this way. I think we are going to, you are the most smart kid in the whole wide world. Yeah? We celebrate our children, we cheerlead them outside of the truth. You see, you are my princess in the whole, no, you are a princess in the whole wide world. Who is you remember the story of Snow White and the evil mother? Who is the most beautiful? And then the mirror would say, Snow White is why? It's because that woman had been celebrated inappropriately all her life. And then there is somebody else. So our children, once we have celebrated them in an unhealthy way, when they go to preschool and they find there is another smart kid and there is another prince and there is another princess, then they go into dissonance because now what? My dad lied to me, my mother. So when we talk about celebrating our children in a healthy way, I usually say, if you must, tell them, you are my princess in my world. World yangu hii, you are my only princess, you see, because, and make sure there are no other girls in your family, because then you are putting them against the other. So you get what I'm saying. And also for those kids who have very high IQ, we want to celebrate that, we want to validate it, but please let's not tell them they are the only ones, because then that is going to question their competence when they go into the world and realize they are not the only ones. You guys know people who were the best in the district and they ended up in alliance. And they found other people who are the best, and you know how that can mess with a child's mind. Number 3, somebody read number 3.
To know that I am safe, both physically and emotionally.
Yeah, and that goes without saying that when I'm at home, home needs to be safe. That physically I am safe. See, ati nikifanya makosa, I cannot tell whether it is the iron that will come flying or it is the sufuria. Now, I have known people who have said dad would come home, maybe he is drunk, and then the food that he is given, he throws it, and it can either hit a child, it can hit the mother or whatever. And moms who would get so emotionally triggered that they cannot regulate themselves, that whatever is here, they would rushia, whether it is a panga, whether it is whatever it is. So a child cannot predict the safety of the home or the place where they are growing up. The last one.
To know I have control. I'm allowed to make mistakes and not made to feel bad about myself because I failed.
Yes, and these four things, they create 4 fears that we have. So this one of control is really that that I need to know that if I make a mistake, I can correct it. I'm not made to feel like I am a failure. The way that the mistake I have made is handled by the adults in my life, it is telling me that, yes, you made a mistake. This is where you went wrong, but this is how you can correct it, so that that child doesn't begin to internalize the thought that they are a failure. So when we think about the first need, love and acceptance, usually that is a person who can develop the fear of rejection and abandonment. Competence, the fear of failure. I can't be able to do anything. And these people who have the fear of failure, they also develop what these days they are calling imposter syndrome. No matter how much they excel, they don't believe they are as good as other people tell them or as their actions tell them. They have a belief that they are a fraud. Then the fear of punishment is going to come in the safe area. So I am afraid if I make a mistake, I'll be punished. If I don't live up to certain expectations, I'm going to be punished. And then the fear of loss of control is now the fear of failure. I don't know whether I said failure. Yeah, I already said failure. It's the fear of shame and guilt. These are the loss of control, because now I'm a flawed human being because I'm making mistake, and then I am going to develop guilt and shame. Now, guilt is I have done something wrong. Shame, there is something wrong with me, or I have done something wrong, therefore I am wrong. So very important for us to understand this. It affects the way now we are going to develop.